Ambalika Guha, and I teach in the Department of English Language and Literature at Adams University. So, today our discussion topic would be the language acquisition theory, behaviorism. The last time, or the kind of topic that we had discussed, so we had a very brief introduction on the understanding of language acquisition. So we raised few questions there. One is how does a child acquire the knowledge of language? And we also tried to question or understand what is the source of this knowledge? So is it like an innate or is it out of experience that the child gains the knowledge of language? So, we also tried to get a very brief understanding of the biological evolution of language. So, we had a discussion on the structure of human brain. Like we started talking about the reptilian brain and how it evolved to mammalian brain and how it finally evolved to the neocortex, which we call as the human brain. We also tried to have an understanding of the development of speech organs and how does this development help the humans to emit innumerable number of speech sounds. And with this, we also had some kind of discussion, a very brief introductory discussion on the language acquisition theories, like behaviorism, innateness hypothesis, which we also termed as the nativist theory, and cognitivism, interactionism, and so on. So in today's lecture, we are going to start with the first theory, that is the behaviorism theory. So let us see. So here the central idea of behaviorist theory, if we can understand, it talks about that how children imitate the environment. So in the environment, who do we have? We have the caregiver, who can be parents or can be anybody besides parents. And there we also have many other people in that environment. So what is being stated in the behaviorist theory, that is like the central claim that a child uses the environment, gains experience from that environment, and whatever the child receives as the input information, the child imitates it while using. So BF Skinner and his team, they had worked or they had conducted experiment on birds and rats. So they had experiment on animals. From that experiment, they found out that animals' behavior can be conditioned in a way that whatever you tell the animal to do, if the animal does it, then in return the animal receives a reward from you. So when the animal receives the reward, the animal likes it and the animal wants to repeat that behavior. So what is happening there? There is some kind of positive conditioning. And there's negative conditioning, like where you do not want the animal to behave in a particular way, or you don't want the animal to do something, and still the animal does it. So the animal might get punished or might get ignored. And so the animal realizes that if this is the behavior that is continued or this is the behavior that is done, then the animal does not get reward. So automatically, that kind of undesirable behavior gets stopped. So that is also negative conditioning. Now, Skinner and the team, they have conducted this experiment on animals like birds and rats, and based on this, they also made this claim that human language, the natural language, uh, can is also developed in a similar fashion. So when we talk about behaviorism, a few things that are very important to understand. One is the stimulus response. Second is the reinforcement. Third is the habit formation, which happens through this conditioning process from the environment. So, what are they claiming? That a child, a human child, uh, they keep on receiving input language data from the environment. And on receiving that data, the child tries to imitate whatever the child hears or whatever the child receives. Another way, when an adult wants the child to say something or to behave in a particular way, if the child says that or the child behaves what the adult wants, then the child gets some kind of reward. And in the return of it, since the child likes the reward, the child repeats that behavior or maybe repeats what the child has already said. This process is called a positive reinforcement. So the child's behavior is getting conditioned by the environment. And in the environment, you have caregiver or many other people. Negative reinforcement would be something where the child uh, says something and that is undesirable, or maybe the child behaves in a particular way which is undesirable to the adult, and the adult wants that to get stopped. So instead of rewarding what the adult can do, the adult might punish the child, or the adult might just forget about it, or the adult might just get, uh, I mean, the adult might just ignore even what the child is doing. So instead of rewarding, these are the steps that the adult can take. And when the child sees that the child's behavior is not getting encouraged, automatically or gradually, the child stops that behavior or stops saying what the child was saying for so long. And that is called negative reinforcement. So behaviorists are claiming that a child develops language through the process of stimulus and response. Whatever you hear, you say that, or whatever behavior you notice, you repeat that behavior. And by conditioning that behavior through the process of reinforcement. So I just read what Skinner suggested here, that a child imitates the language of its parents or carers. So here we are talking about imitates the language of the environment. Okay. And successful attempts are rewarded because an adult who recognizes a word spoken by a child will praise the child. And that is what we are calling as a positive reinforcement. So something that the child says, the adult really likes it, the adult praises, and the child also likes it back, and the child keeps on repeating it. And or give it what it is asking for. So successful utterances are therefore reinforced, while unsuccessful utterances are forgotten. So anything that the adult does not like and the child does it, so automatically the child is being ignored. So here we are talking about that how children behavior or maybe or also the language learning process or the language acquisition process can be conditioned from the environment. So if you remember in the last session that we had in lecture 1, we spoke about the theory of empiricism. So what did we learn from that? We learned that children's source of language knowledge is is from the environment. Okay, so it's like solely from the environment, and that is exactly what behaviors are saying. That exposure to the language data here means particularly the native language data. That exposure becomes the most important factor through which the child gradually keeps on developing the knowledge of that language. So the language data that the child has gets from the environment, that keeps on shaping the entire language acquisition process that happens through stimulus and response basis. Now there are certain inadequacy of behaviorist account or the behaviorist claim. Let's say, what are those? So, bodies of research conducted so far reveal that child language is very complex and rule governed. Indeed, we had also discussed it in the last lecture that the language that we speak or the language that we use, it is the underlying representation of that language is it's a very complicated structure of a rule system. And so we are seeing that when a child develops a knowledge of the language, that means the child also develops the knowledge of that rule system. Okay, so uh, developing the knowledge of the rule system means also the child knows how to use that rule system. So having the rule system with the child gets that knowledge that uh, based on a particular rule system, what kind of sentences, what kind of language constructions can be generated. Now, surprisingly enough, this kind of rule system that we are talking about and the language that is a product of that rule system is very, very systematic. And a child develops that kind of systematic knowledge, and which enables the child to produce n number of sentences or n number of sentential constructions which they have not heard before. So the child can keep on producing novel utterances. The child has that capability. So here, if you're talking about, according to the behaviorist theory, that a child learns everything from the stimulus, then this becomes a question to us, that if everything the child learns from the stimulus, from the environment, then how is it possible that something that the child has not heard before, the child can even produce those kind of sentences? So this question that we have, it actually shows that input data, or getting just exposure to the target language data is not enough. So there must be something more to it, which is helping the child to understand the entire system of language that the child is exposed to. And here comes a very, very strong criticism of Noam Chomsky, who has a sharp objection towards the behaviorist claims of a child learning language through stimulus response, through positive and negative reinforcement. So what Chomsky is saying, that children, the way children perform in language, particularly as we just mentioned a few minutes back, that the child can keep on producing sentences or constructions which the child has never heard before, the child has never been exposed to before. So how is this happening? And Chomsky is saying that this is like the result of having a mental ability to process what we are hearing. So whatever the language input data that our brain receives, there is some kind of innate mental ability which is processing that data and then channelizing that data through some kind of language processing device or parts that are already inbuilt in our brain. And in that device, Chomsky is saying that there are rules of languages that reside. So whenever all input data that the brain is receiving and then channelizing through that language processing device, what is happening? I mean, where we already have the rules inbuilt in that device, the moment we hear some kind of input data, the rules that is in that language processing device recognizes the rule system of that input data. So, according to Chomsky's viewpoint here, that language is simply not learned, or the knowledge of language is simply not gathered from the experience of the environment. There is also something in our brain that is helping us in understanding or mapping the rule system of that target language, and then generating number of sentential constructions in that particular language. So, if since we are talking about the limitations of behaviorism, number of linguists, particularly the generativist linguists, they have worked. I mean, they have conducted number of experiments to indicate some of the major limitations of the theory of behaviorism. So, like the over applying a rule or the virtuous error. So what happens there? It has been noticed that a child, through multiple stages, tries to acquire the language or goes through the acquisition process, a child keeps on saying something or using some kind of words which might sound ungrammatical to us. Like, for example, a child has heard the past tense of the verbs. Okay, and usually the general rule in English language to make a verb past form, we use the morpheme ed. So we say play, and the past form of play would be played. So jump would be jumped, or walk would be walked. And automatically, the child uh, keeps on using every verb form in its past tense, adding ed. So the child would also say dream as dreamed, or drink as drinked. Okay. And we know that dreamed or drinked ed, these are ungrammatical, because the irregular verb forms like drink or dream, uh, their past form, they do not end with ed. Right? So dream becomes dreamt, and drink becomes drank. So what is happening here? If you're talking about behaviorism, that the child learns everything from the environment through the stimulus response process, then it is not possible that the child has heard from the adults the word drinked or dreamed, but the child is applying the rule which he or she has already heard in the past sometime, uh, that past form morpheme ed. So what the child is doing, the child has understood the rule system, that okay, I have a verb, and if I want to use it in the past form, then I have to use ed morpheme, and the child keeps on applying that for every verb that the child comes across. Now, this is what we are calling as overgeneralization of rules, or over applying a rule. And this kind of mistake that the child does, it's called a virtuous error. So, virtuous error here means it's like an intelligent mistake, because this is the error, it is followed because the child recognizes the pattern of forming past tense of verbs, and child keeps on producing the past tense of other verbs following that particular rule system. So if this is what is happening, then this also arises a question towards the idea of behaviorism, that child imitates everything from the surrounding, and this is not what is happening. uh, the second one is like the developmental milestone. So what happens here, let me share another handout. Yes. So what happens in this case, children across all language communities, they acquire language through certain stages, and every child across all language communities, they go through these stages at the same period of time. So even here we are talking about a child with the native language Bangla, or the child with the native language, let's say, uh, Hindi, or the child with the native language, let's say, uh, you know, some in English, or any other form of language here. So what are those stages? So we are talking about the 0 to 3 months, or maybe 0 to 4 months also. So that is the stage where the child makes the cooing sounds. Okay, smiles at people and keeps on making the cooing sounds. Now, from this 4 to 6 months of age, besides the cooing sounds, where the child has also started moving eyes in, in direction of sounds that the child hears, and the child keeps on also, responding to kind of voice change that happens. So child also starts producing babbling sounds. The babbling sounds are like, ba, ba, ma, especially like oh. So all kinds of vowels that are there. So after this babbling stage, here comes the 7 to 1 year of stage, where babbling sound gets further elaborated. The child starts using gestures, like if anybody waves the child with bye, the child will also wave back. The child can also shake a head to a no or nod it to yes. The child can understand number of common items, okay, like cup or truck or juice or daddy or the toys that are around the child. Also, by the age of 1 year, the child starts uttering one word, something like dog, dada, mama. Even at this age also, the child uses this, over generalization of rules, like something that the child watches with 4 legs, and one time the child understood that 4-legged animal is a dog. The child keeps on referring to every 4-legged animal as dog. Or even at our home also, we have noticed that the child of 1 year age or 1.5 year age, calls almost many people as dada or as mama, because that is how the child recognizes. Okay. And so from this 1 to 2 years of age, what happens there, that the child's vocabulary system starts getting strengthened, acquires a lot of new words, starts to name pictures in the books. The child can also follow some kind of directions or instructions that are given. Okay. And asks questions like, what's that, who is that, where is the doggy, where is the kitty. And by the end of the 1.5 year, almost like when the child is approaching 2 years, or in the second year, the child has started using two-word constructions. So within the period of 2 to 3 years, the child starts building phrases. Okay, the child now has developed this knowledge that which word means the grammatical category of which word gets combined with the grammatical category of which word. So the child can say, more apple, so that the child now knows that, that the child needs to put more to the left of apple. The child can say no bid. Okay. Or the child can say, want more. So the child has already started developing this knowledge that words can be combined together to form meaning. And and when we're talking about that the words can be combined together, here we are also talking about, like, there is a rule system which is guiding this formation or combination of words. So the child has also acquired that by this age. And obviously, when the child moves to the fourth year of the age, particularly from 3 to 4 years, the child has started constructing, simple sentences, particularly keeps on answering to any kind of questions that are thrown. Okay. The child uses pronouns. They have understood the distinction between the I, you, me, she, he, they, it. They have developed. I mean, the children have already developed this kind of knowledge by the age of fourth year. And finally, the fourth to the fifth year, children can really make complicated sentence constructions. Some of the embedded sentence constructions also they can make. They can create all types of speech sounds in words. They can make a conversation going on. Okay, they can tell us short stories. So, and this is the kind of developmental milestones that we're talking about, that every children across all language communities, they go through. So it is not possible that, a Bengali child or maybe a Vietnamese child, they are having the same environment in which they are brought up. There might be similarities, there might be a lot of differences. Okay, then if we are saying that, we pick up this knowledge of language from our environment, then this question also arises, that how is it possible that if we pick up the knowledge of language from our immediate environment, then how is the case that the Bengali speaking child and the Vietnamese child, they both acquire language through the same developmental milestones in the same period of time? Okay. The third kind of criticism that comes to us is that, children are often, like, behaviorists said that children imitate adults, but we have number of data here which says that, children, they are often unable to repeat what an adult says. So let's see an example here. If you notice, this child and a mother interaction that is going on, and this was experiment was conducted by the American psycholinguist David McNeil. So the child is saying, nobody don't like me. So this is like a double negative construction. And the mother says, no, say nobody likes me. So nobody don't like me, that's ungrammatical. You cannot have double construction there. The child hears the mother and the child says, nobody don't like me. So the child repeats it and repeats the ungrammatical structure 8 times in the dialogue. And the mother says that, no, now listen carefully and say, nobody likes me. The child says, oh, as if the child, realizes what the kind of mistake the child was doing. And then the child keeps on saying, nobody don't likes me. So the child picks up that likes, but the child forgets to, omit that don't part. So if we are claiming that children imitate adults, then this child would have just said exactly what the mother said. But that is not happening. This child is constantly, recognizing some patterns, some rule patterns, and generating sentences according to the way this child understands the rules. Next point of criticism that comes to us for behaviorism, that is like, parents are more interested in politeness and truthfulness. Yes. So when a child is speaking, even if the child says ungrammatical sentence constructions, parents or the caregivers, they do not pay much attention to it if the child is being polite, or if whatever the child is saying, that is truth according to the caregiver, or maybe to the parents, right? So the more focus is not on the grammaticality, but more on the politeness and truthfulness. So again, this challenges that, uh, from the environment, the adult is saying grammatical sentence constructions, but the child many a time says ungrammatical sentences or constructions, and parents, sometimes they correct it, sometimes they don't correct it, because they think that the more important thing is the behavior being polite or the child being truthful. The last point of criticism of behaviorism is the critical period of language acquisition. So very interestingly, it is again experimented and shown that if a child does not acquire language before the child hits puberty, so there's a critical period when lateralization process also goes on. Mm, by that period, if the child does not acquire a language, then it gets very difficult for the child to understand or develop the rule system of any language. And here we have a very painful example of Ginny. So Ginny, till the age of 13 years, she was, kept in an isolated room, completely secluded from, human contact, human touch. And after 13 years, when she was discovered, she was put into rehabilitation center, where number of speech therapy sessions were conducted with her. Ginny could finally get some vocabulary of her mother tongue, but she could never attain the knowledge of grammatical complexities that a 5-year-old child already has. So Ginny never attains that stage because Ginny has already crossed the critical period. And this again goes against the rule, I mean, against the claim of behaviorists that, children acquire language from the environment. Whatever the child hears, the child imitates it. It goes through a stimulus response process. So, with this, I would like to end today's session. And the next session, the next lecture, we have on innateness hypothesis, which is by Chomsky. And there we will also get more evidence that how the behaviorist theory of language acquisition fails. Thank you so much.